This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ogen, and our special guest is the publisher of JacketsOnline.com, Kelly Quinlan. Kelly, thanks for joining us. We're going to talk just briefly about how Georgia Tech is doing. And, I was sitting here before the show started thinking to myself, man, we had a lot different perspective on how the ACC was all going to play out and how things were going to be by this time, and it's way different. Tell us what you're seeing, what's different, and especially as it has to do with Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I think the one probably biggest thing has been that Clemson was not very good, right? And the expectation was that they had Klubnik and he had retooled the defense with Tom Allen and they were going to be so much better, and they're not. And they've had some injuries and some key pieces out, but they've still really underperformed. And Klubnik's basically not gotten any better during his time at Clemson, to be brutally honest about it. Let's be real here. He's not improved the way that people expected, and he's certainly not a Heisman candidate or anything close to that so far through the season. And so that changes the math on everything. Georgia Tech kind of steamrolled through their first part of their schedule. The Wake game was a little bit weird. That was reminded me a lot of their game at Syracuse last year, playing an early kickoff on the road against a team that had not looked very good through the first part of their season and kind of sleptwalked, and Haynes King didn't play well. They had some injuries, and they also had some guys sick in the game with like food poisoning or a stomach bug or something. So, they're undefeated 5-0. This was the best case scenario to this point, obviously. Have all the P4 games been ridiculously close? Yes. But, they handled their business against Temple and who was the FCS? I don't even remember. Oh, Gardner-Webb a few weeks ago. So, I think they're in a good position. And, here's where it gets interesting, because this is where they screwed up in 2014 when they're in the same position and they were doing really well. They lost to Duke and Carolina, who were both not very good that year, and ended up still making the ACC championship, but not maybe maxing out the potential of that team with Justin Thomas. That was really good, that beat Mississippi State in the Orange Bowl. Now you have a playoff, so it's a little different, right? They don't have a lot of margin for error. Obviously, the ACC is not going to get any kind of a break when it comes to the playoff selection for the team that doesn't win the conference. So, and Miami looks like a juggernaut and looks really difficult to beat right now. So when you look at it, it gets interesting from there. You got Duke and Virginia. Everyone thought Duke would be good. They started out really poorly and kind of got it together. Virginia's been a little bit of a surprise, but they're playing probably one of the weakest schedules. Them and North Carolina have probably the two weakest schedules in the league, and they're taking advantage of it and won some close games. And they beat Florida State, which is a huge thing. Can they keep that up? Can they win every week? They needed everything in their arsenal to beat Louisville. It was not playing well. Louisville's probably a little bit less than we thought. SMU's been a little bit less than we thought. Florida State, it's interesting. Everyone drank the Kool-Aid really fast on that one. And then, you look, they're at the bottom of the league right now with Boston College. They haven't won a conference game since the Cal game last year. They're one in three, so 0-2. They're 1-11 or whatever it is in their last conference games. Yeah. And then I saw the stat that someone tweeted out about Norvell's record without Jordan Travis. It's crazy. It's 7-20 or 7-29 or something like that, as a head coach of Florida State. So it's interesting. NC State's been not great. Pitt's been really up and down. Cal's weird. The whole league's kind of strange. And then Carolina's just been an embarrassment to the league so far this year. And that surprised everybody because that thing was all lined up for them to win. And they just gutted that team, and then they looked terrible. And once they're off script, they look really bad on offense. And it's been an interesting year. And then obviously, the big thing too with Syracuse, the wheels came off when their quarterback got hurt at the end of the Clemson game, which sucks because it was not. I think the game was in hand when he got hurt, and so that's even tougher. And they're just kind of floundering. Wake is probably a little better than people thought they would be, but they still have really inconsistent quarterback play. And yeah, I mean, they're not a bowl team, but they'll be a tough out for people. Then you obviously the Brent Pry situation, Virginia Tech's wild, like getting fired and them actually looking better with Philip Montgomery, the former Tulsa coach, as interim. So it kind of goes through the league. I mean, it's Stanford kind of terrible. They have okay defense. I think that's everybody. It's just the league's not great this year. Miami looks like a legit top four team right now. Can they keep that up? He's terrible in November as a coach. In December, can Camario get over those demons? That defensive line's nasty. Like Ruben Kid's playing as good as he's having a season. Like he could end up having like a Julius Peppers level, like season for them. One of the probably standout defensive end performances we've seen in the league in a long time.
That's some big money waiting on that guy. Big money. It's interesting. Um, I think we talked about Georgia Tech being in the top five without too much of a surprise because we just felt like this team was together and they got a great coach and it was just gonna happen. Uh, where they are right now, it's as you said, this conference is maddening sometimes. We've got Will and I both. Our power rankings don't come out until tomorrow, but and this is recorded on a Sunday, so that you have some context of time here. But we both have Georgia Tech at number two, and I look at that and I go, shouldn't I be thinking something other than that? Is there somebody else there? And then I go back over all the information and I'm going, they're right where they ought to be. So not too surprising. Will?
Whoops, as accidentally muted myself there. But so Kelly, let's talk about Haynes King for a moment because I
Sure.
think when we look at the grand scheme of things, even with the game he missed, he's on pace for a 2,000 yard passing, 1,000 yard rushing season. And full disclosure, Jim and I have a TikTok account on ACC Nation, and one of the things I put up this week is why is Haynes King not getting any love in the Heisman race, considering Georgia Tech they're now ranked in the top 15. They have a schedule where they can get to double digit wins. And when you think of MVPs of college football, Haynes King should be in the conversation. So
Yeah.
question is yours. When will Haynes King get some Heisman love?
It's interesting. I think missing the it was the Gardner Webb game, getting banged up in the opener against Colorado, and then not playing particularly great at times. Throwing the football, they've had some real inconsistencies with the offense, and that really showed up in that Wake Forest game. He had a terrible first half by his own admission, and then was really good in the second half. And throwing the ball and stepping into throws, he's got to kind of get it all together. He hasn't played anywhere near kind of his peak level. I think so far through the season, we've seen kind of glimpses of it, drives here and there, where he hasn't looked like the full version of himself that he was playing at. Really, in the Georgia game last year, or at times before he got hurt last year. I think when you see that, that's going to be the thing that moves the needle for people a little bit in the Heisman race, and you'll start to see more guys fall out, right? Like, Tommy Castellanos was getting a lot of love. Obviously, they're not having they've stepped backwards a little bit in the last 2 weeks in ACC play. Um, who else in the league? Carson Beck. You wonder with Beck how much of that is those guys making incredible plays for him too. And he's throwing some dimes, but like he's also getting helped out by like some really amazing play and dudes just making incredible individual effort plays like the Tony kid last night, juking a guy for a touchdown. Like those are those are pluses for him, and he hasn't ever really had anything like that. So that's been interesting to kind of watch. And that's about it in the terms of the ACC. We'll see what happens with kind of Duke, if they can kind of turn it on here or not. They have a good QB who's interesting, the Mensa kid. Looking around the rest of the league, though, that's about it. And then you look at the SEC and the other leagues, there's not a ton of guys that are really killing it. I mean, I would say right now the best player in the league is probably Ruben Bain. And like, if you want to look at it in the totality of like who's been the most impactful player, I mean, I think he had more pressures in the game the other night than Florida State had in the entire game on the other side of the football. That's one guy, like he's really dominating. But again, defensive lineman in the ACC is probably not going to get Heisman love. Um, but I mean, if I were voting today, he'd definitely be in the mix. Haynes would be, I think Haynes is a top 10 guy right now. Look, I'm trying to think of who else, there's starting to be a little buzz on Ty Simpson or like whoever. Um, you know, has Julian Sand done anything yet to move the needle at Ohio State? Not particularly. They're just kind of handling their business. I'm trying to think like as I kind of go through the league, there's some love for Beck. There's a few other guys that'll be interesting to see as the teams start to play each other, right? That's sort of where this gets real interesting, especially with the SEC teams. They'll start to knock each other off. You won't see probably A&M and Georgia and whoever still, ranked highly in Alabama. One of those will start to separate out a little bit. And so that's where I think the Heisman thing will start to pick up a little bit. The problem Georgia Tech has is he would need to have like a crazy game against Georgia, I think, to move the needle enough to he'd have to do what he did last year basically against Georgia and really dominate the game as an individual. And I think if you did that and Georgia Tech's ranked in the top 10, if they were undefeated at that point, which they would be, and you're playing a Georgia team that's probably in the top 10 or top 15, then that's where you can start to build that case. But right now I think that, you know, getting Colorado and getting a down Clemson and getting Wake Forest and Temple is not gonna move the needle enough nationally for him, unfortunately.
Just so everyone knows, Kelly is a Heisman voter.
Yeah.
So
But it really does say something about the state of the college football in 2025 when we're halfway through the season and we're like, who's the Heisman favorite? And nobody really comes to mind. And because all the favorites like Arch Manning, Kate Klubnik, they're just not nearly what we thought they would be.
What were the preseason odds were like Arch, um, who else was it?
and nobody else basically.
Nussmeyer,
Yep,
Right.
Nussmeyer's underwhelmed.
was
Lenore
Lagway on there?
Sellers, Lagway
Just
Sellers.
really nobody
Yeah,
after
and
Manning,
then nobody's really
frankly.
The Oklahoma quarterbacks, playing pretty well.
Mateer.
Um, I don't know that Bryce Underwood's doing a whole lot at Michigan yet to like really move the needle.
It
And then
might
some
be
of the dark horse guys like a Ryan Williams, he hasn't had a particularly great season so far either. Like the freaky guys that are the Travis Hunter level freak athletes, they're not moving the needle enough yet either. That's where I mean, like a Ruben Bain kind of stands out to me, or like
exactly.
some dude, or like another guy probably not getting talked about enough is the Indiana quarterback, but that's because they don't play anybody, and that's going to kill him because they're scheduling so bad.
Yep.
Drew Aller, that was another
Oh
one.
yeah, that was Drew Aller.
Oh
Yep.
my God. I was like, did you
Oof.
watch that guy play? Like, I have yet to see him do anything like really impressive in a big game. It's like, that's no offense to the guy, but like, he just hasn't, like, why is he like on draft boards? Why is he like as a first round pick? Why is he like, it's not there, like when you cut the tape on and watch him play.
Because there's not a whole lot else out there to pick from
Yeah.
in this class.
Clearly
That's the
not. I
problem.
mean,
Yeah.
You know?
why was Kate Klumpnick we've all watched that dude for what, 3 years now? Like,
Yep.
Right.
It's
and
not there.
it's just not. When has he put his team on his shoulders and won a game like in a
hmm
big moment?
Certainly
Not
not.
really much. The ACC championship a little bit. Like
Yeah.
there's just
But
not like you think about Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence,
Yeah.
Taj Boyd, like those dudes. I can think of games where they put their teams. I can think of more than one, right? Like and Cade's not that guy, man. And clearly, Arch Manning right now is not. Um, Oh my
I don't know
God.
enough
Like,
about that, but I mean, man, I just for me, it's like as much money as rolls through Texas on a regular basis, and they try to literally buy everything. And you know, Arch Manning, I heard this out of New Orleans because that's where my father-in-law lives, and it's just all that's all I ever heard every time I went down there. Oh, Arch Manning, Arch Manning, Arch Manning, Arch Manning, and I'm going like. I'm not seeing it. I'm really not seeing it, but let's find out what he can do at the college level. We know.
well, it's what Spurrier said, right? Spurrier said, why weren't they playing him over Quinn Ewers? And they ran Quinn Ewers off. He would have stayed. He had another year. He could have come back, and they ran him out to clear the way for Arch to start, and that has backfired horribly on Sark and the boys there. And I have friends on that staff. Like it's and grew up a Texas fan. That was where my parents went to school. Like it's been interesting to watch that kind of afar. I don't keep as close tabs as I used to, but since I have friends there, I do talk to a lot of people around the program. It's just like, woof, like that. He was plus 600 to win the Heisman. I just pulled up the odds. It was him, Kate Klubnik, Nussmeier, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, the wide receiver, Sellers at South Carolina, Drew Aller, Ty Simpson, Carson Beck.
Where are they now?
And Carson Beck's really the only one that's still in it.
Yeah.
Like, you
Okay.
know,
This is crazy. This has been a crazy year for a lot of things, and that's one of them right there. Just staggering to me. Hey, listen, one real quick question. Let Will get one in as well. This is the question. I'm looking at the schedule and I'm going, okay, things have changed here and we have a different look. And unless there's something, that comes up that is not anticipated, I'm not going to say it out loud because that's jinxing stuff. But I'm looking at this last game, week 14, Georgia. I think this is just going to be an absolute barn burner if things continue to click and go down the right path. And as you were mentioning earlier, look, if Georgia Tech beats Georgia in that game, they are really going to be in a sweet position for the college football playoffs.
yeah, I
Thoughts?
mean, I think that's a lock. If they beat them and they're 12-0 going into the ACC championship, even if they just laid an egg in the ACC championship against Miami or Virginia, Duke, whoever they played,
Mhm.
they're in. Because that's like where if you're Greg Sankey and all those dudes, you can't say anything if one of your best teams got beat head to head
That's
a
right.
week before championship Saturday on a Friday night national TV, and they're playing it in the Benz, not in Bobby Dodd. So you're not even getting a true home field advantage. Like
Mhm.
it's going to be fairly, I would imagine, a fairly even crowd, if not a little slanted towards Georgia, which it's been. So like, if you're playing that game in that situation, you beat them. You almost beat them last year. You had one of probably the top five college football games of the year last year. Like that is how you get on the map, and that is your path to playoffs. But they got to get through all this other stuff between now and then. And this team has shown an ability to play down to their opposition, and it's been a problem across college football. It's not just Georgia Tech. You watch it every week.
Yeah.
Their teams scuffling and struggling and not putting teams away. Not very few teams doing kind of what Ohio State does really well and put a team away and lean on them. And we saw it last night with the Florida State game, right? Like they actually almost screwed that up, like really close to screwing that up. And so, I think it's hard to go through there, but if they do, they're probably in, especially if they beat Georgia. It's hard to, or even if that game's like really competitive, which every one of them with Brent Key has been extremely competitive. So like, if as long as this game's not lopsided, I think they have a good shot at being the token second ACC team in that situation. Now, what gets interesting is if you like, I don't know what Virginia's case would be if they get, say, Virginia runs a table. Like they would need, I think, beat like a Miami or something, somebody ranked in the ACC championship to get in because their schedule is so soft and they already have a non-conference loss against another ACC team that
Mhm.
is probably one that's going to struggle to make a bowl game in NC State. So like, how does that work? Like, how do you rationalize that. That's where it gets interesting, and that's what's tough for the ACC. That they wanted Florida State to be good so badly, or North Carolina, right? Like that's what the league wanted, and their worst fear is like Duke, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Duke, Georgia Tech, Virginia in the ACC championship game if Miami were to screw up. That's like Jim Phillips like cold waking nightmare like scenario, right? Like because that's going to be a dog. Like no one's interested in that. The only thing that would be worse would be like a Cal Stanford ACC championship or like Duke Virginia that no one would care about. Like now you might get Virginia fans to show up, but like Duke, it's bad. That's probably basketball season, man. They're going to be in Cameron, not super bought into to going and filling up a Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte.
Cold sweats. I can see Phillips waking up in the middle of the night. Well, you got a last second question here.
Yeah, last one for me. We talked offense, right? So let's get a defense question here. I think the one thing that concerns me about this defense is they haven't really forced many turnovers. To my knowledge, to what I saw, they only forced 3 turnovers at this point this season. Are you surprised they haven't been a little more opportunistic? And what do they need to do to be a little more opportunistic?
Well, so it's a little misleading. So right, they had the strip sack reversed. That was kind of a terrible call in the Wake game. And then you had an interception on the 2-point conversion at the end of the Wake game that didn't count. So that's 2 more takeaways that should have counted. They had, they have not had their hands on footballs as much in the secondary, so that's a little bit concerning. But they've played a lot of bend but don't break and keep things in front of you, and a lot of that. And teams have had a lot of running success on them as well. And I think that's kind of swung a little bit. They've been in more close games where teams aren't chucking it as much either down the field. It should even out as they start to place some other quarterbacks who are a little less careful with the football here going down the stretch as well. So this week with Kyron Jones, it just depends on which version of him you get. He can look great and he can look terrible, and and it's varies week to week. They saw a decent version of him last year. Do you get a good version? Do you get a bad version? You don't know. So I think they'll start to come, but they've been a little problematic the last 2 years in terms of getting takeaways, and I know that's an area of concern for Coach Key and the defense. And they're getting pressure. Run defense just hasn't been good either, and I think it's a little of A, a little of B there that's hurting them.
So, if we're looking for information on Georgia Tech, we always go to Kelly. Kelly Quinlan, the publisher of jacketsonline.com, and he is getting ready to go off and cover the ACC basketball tip-off in Charlotte. So a lot of that information is going to be available to you as a reader. And if you're not a reader, you need to subscribe, jacketsonline.com, and get in there and get a hold of it, because it's going to be an interesting ACC basketball year. So find out what's going on from the ACC tip-off. Kelly's going to be covering that from Charlotte. We appreciate you dropping by and talking some football, and we'll have you back to talk about some basketball down the road, because, like I said, it's going to be a fun season ahead.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Take care, man. Thanks again to Kelly Quinlan for dropping by, the publisher of jacketsonline.com. Make sure that you subscribe. As I said, a lot of great coverage of football and the upcoming ACC tip-off. So we're going to find out a lot about what's going on with basketball at Georgia Tech. The only way you as a Georgia Tech fan should be finding out about that is through Jackets Online. Hey, Will and I, we have our ACC power rankings out. It was some interesting responses to it last week. One in particular I had was like Jim. So I'm glad you guys have got a sense of humor. It's the only thing I can tell you. It'll be interesting again this week as well. You can catch that at accnation.net. This program is heard as a podcast. You can subscribe to that. We sure would love for you to do that. Make sure that you like it and subscribe. And you can also listen to us on ACC Nation streaming radio, which is available anywhere and everywhere. That the demographics that we have on that proves that fact. All the listeners that are across the world, we appreciate you very much. And you can also watch this on YouTube as well, on our YouTube channel. And as Will was mentioning earlier, we've just added TikTok at ACC Nation Net. Make sure that you drop in there. Will has been dropping a lot of videos, some interesting stuff, and a lot of great response from you folks too. We appreciate you.
I
Um,
couldn't help but notice when you kind of took a breath and said YouTube, it almost like you're resigned to it, like, oh, I guess we're doing YouTube. I'm just kidding.
Not at
These
all.
people are in for a surprise with that ugly mug on the right.
Uh, well, it depends on which right you're talking about.
Well, my right, talking about
But
me.
now my right is
Yeah.
here. So anyway, um, let's take a look at what happened in football, and it was talking about ugly mugs. Woo, baby! Let's start out with this Clemson over North Carolina game, and I know that we mentioned this a few moments ago. Um, you and Kelly kind of alluded to this ugliness at North Carolina, and Kelly said basically selling us a bill of goods here, so to speak. Um, the pun was intended. The final 38-10, and I still believe that people are not giving Bill Belichick an opportunity like they would most coaches who come in. Yes, he did, as Kelly pointed out, they kind of cleared house. So a lot of this is on them. They cleared house, got rid of a lot of talent, and I guess they're just building from the ground up. So the problem is, there's a lot of excitement about having somebody who has won what, seven Super Bowl rings at New England come in to be a head coach, and then having a season that is just absolutely miserable. I mean, there were hardly anybody in the seats at the stadium for the game against Clemson. It was, that doesn't surprise me in some ways, but in other ways, it's very disappointing to see that.
Well, when the highlight of the game is a pregame concert by Ludacris, that just tells you how things are going. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
28-3, Clemson was up at the end of the first quarter. They scored on their, I think it was on their first offensive snap they scored. So
Yeah. Was that the
they
trick
out,
play?
it was the trick play touchdown. Yeah. Clemson outgained UNC 253 to 57 in the first quarter alone. Yeah. K. Klubnik, 4 touchdown passes, but he sat out the final quarter and a half because, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
And now the thing about UNC, they've played 3 games against Power Four competition. They've been outscored 120 to 33.
Hmm.
So it's not good. It's not getting any better. It's a dumpster fire. And I saw this thing on CBS Sports yesterday where even they were thinking it was just time for Belichick to go because it it like this is you would think you would know what you're doing if you're Bill Belichick, but the dude is I like you can say, oh, he's still building this program, but at the same time, he's at the point in his life where he doesn't have time to build. And I just wonder if he's going to be one and done,
How
if he
old do
even
you
makes the
think
full.
he is, man?
He's in his 70s, and he's even
But he's not dead yet. So,
his coaching career probably is, but
apparently, considering the age of his girlfriend, he ain't dead yet. So, just saying, man.
we're
Anyway,
not talking about that.
let's move on to this next game. This was a surprise to me in some ways. Wow, 48-7, the final score. Pitt found something, and I think it was a new quarterback. 48-7 over Boston College.
Yeah, this is one of the videos I put up on our TikTok on Saturday, just talking about how embarrassing this game was for Boston College, and their fans should feel embarrassed by it. When you're starting a quarterback in their first game, and speaking of Belichick, this quarterback made him look like Tom Brady. Mason Heinschel is his name. He threw for 323 yards and 4 touchdowns. Pitt outgained BC 503 to 216. There was one point, I think it was in the first quarter, where they had like a holding and a personal foul where Pitt had 1st and 35 and they converted it. I think they ended up like 4th and 11 and got the first down. Boston College turned it over 3 times. Grayson or Dylan Lonigan started. He looked a bit flustered. Brought in Grayson James, and he threw a pick and was benched for Shaker Razig, who actually was the best looking quarterback of the three. But there's no quarterback controversy in this. It was just a flat out embarrassing performance by Boston College. But on the Pitt side, you're very happy because Heinschel looked really good in his first start, but for their benched Eli Holstein, but now the question is, can he repeat that? Now that, and I always say this, okay, you did it once, but now there's tape on you. Can you do it again? Can you adjust?
Exactly.
We'll see.
So let me, if I can get this out from underneath stacks of stuff that I'm moving around here. Hello, where are you? Okay, so so they've got at Florida State, at Syracuse, NC State. They've got Notre Dame, and they got Georgia Tech and Miami. That's what's coming up on Pitt's schedule. I dropped one of the teams that's on that list. But they've got a pretty tough schedule coming up. So, it's do or die time for these guys.
Yeah, and like you said, they're 3-2. They need three of those final games. There'll be a dog to Florida State. We'll see. I think they'll probably lose to Florida State. At Syracuse is winnable, definitely, especially with them playing the back quarterback. NC State at home, I think, is a toss-up. At Stanford's definitely winnable, but I don't think they're winning, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, or Miami unless the quarterback is hurt for Georgia Tech, then maybe, but even still, I would still lean the Yellow Jackets.
Yep.
So they're gonna have to get it. They're gonna have to win three of the next four, basically, as far as I see it.
Rough ride. Next game up, Wake Forest over Virginia Tech, and I know this is just absolutely crushing for Hokies fans, but certainly boosted the confidence of Wake Forest fans. 30-23 final score.
Yeah, this was an ugly, ugly game. Oh man. It was a lot of penalties, like personal foul penalties. Each team had four in this game. Wake had 11 penalties in total.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the ugly, ugly game. Wake Forest outgained Virginia Tech 347 to 263 in this game. Demont Claiborne left the game late in the first half with an injury and did not return, which is a shame because he's been so good for them, and he's been banged up the past few weeks, so hopefully he can get back and healthy soon. But it's a big win for Wake Forest because they it's been a struggle and we kind of thought it would be, but going on the road and beating Virginia Tech, I think is a really impressive feat. But again, Virginia Tech, there's no excuse to lose a game like that. The Hokies are the better team, but they just didn't play like it. And we talked about it with Kelly, just the kind of up and down nature of Kyron Drones. They definitely got the down version in this game.
You never know what you're going to get. You know, that is the run of the mill of what you can expect sometimes out of the ACC as a whole. Pitt is the roller coaster of teams. I mean, you can always count on them being up and down every week. And that just drives me insane to watch that. That's why I was surprised by that 48-7 win. It was just so big. It was like, where did that come from? But anyway, moving on to the next game, it's a real, not a shocker, really not a lot to talk about here. NC State, you know, potential, so much potential here on this team, and they have just not been able to get it all together. But if you play a team like Campbell, the Camels, 56-10 is not an unexpected score.
Jim, what do I call these kind of games? Stat pattern games.
That's right.
And that's exactly what this game was. Just a stat pattern game. I mean, NC State had 607 total yards of offense against the Fighting Camels. The only thing I learned from this game is that Campbell has a quarterback named Camden Six Killer. That's a hell of a name, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is not much to take from this game.
No. Take it, crumble it up, file 13. SMU over Syracuse, 31-18. As you mentioned a moment ago, Will, talking about when you lose Angeli and then you have a backup come in, and I thought there was some potential there, but it's not clicking, at least not yet, for Syracuse, and who knows if it will, right? Uh, SMU at least made sure to show everyone that, despite a couple of losses that they should not have lost, that they're still in the game.
Yeah, this game was decided in the second quarter, basically. SMU scored 21 points, led 24-3 at halftime as a result. Kevin Jennings, 4 touchdown passes in this game, and Syracuse turned it over 3 times, which were all interceptions by Ricky Collins. So that was a rough game there, but we, and this is something we've talked about is with SMU. I feel like their defense is kind of that roller coaster. They've been very up. They've been up games like this where they get the turnovers in the Missouri State game where they were really good, but then you get the downs with like TCU and Baylor who just threw it all over the yard against them. But I still think SMU is definitely going to be in that 7 to 8 win range by the time we get to the end of the season, which is again going to be another really successful season.
Yeah. I don't think you can argue that point. And getting to a bowl, your second season in the ACC, having gone to the championship game first, playing in the college football playoffs, and then the second going to a bowl. There's just no way in the world that they're gonna. Well, I shouldn't say there's no way in the world, but I'll just, I don't see them making it to the championship game again. Um, yeah, I just don't see it. Anyway, but SMU solid program, and as you had commented on TikTok about Rhett Lashley leaving, ha! that would be
Yeah, I
absolutely
was like I said, I think
needed.
SMU is a better job than Arkansas right now, and I'm not backing down from that.
You didn't come out and say that it was a stupid move, but I'll say it
No.
is. It would be a stupid move for him to move.
Hmm.
Um, he has so much more potential at SMU. I don't think I would have ever said that a couple of years ago, but now I do
Yeah.
see what the potential is.
The question is do you want I mean, do you want a mid to lower pack SEC job where you're probably going to last 4 to 5 years, or do you want to be in do you want a potentially upper tier ACC job where you could consistently win 7, 8 games and you're going to have good job security?
Yep. They have bowls and all kinds of other stuff. So much more potential playing in the ACC than there is in a lot of other conferences for a variety of reasons. And people outside of this conference can downplay it all they want. It's decent football. There are great players, and there's always a fairly decent bowl that is waiting for you at the end of the season if you're getting 6 wins. And it's not unusual for about 3/4 of the conference to go to bowls. So that's something for fans to look at. I'm sure this game absolutely blew your mind. You had gone on to Cardinal Sports Zone and spoken with our buddies over there about this game between Virginia and Louisville. And it went into an overtime. Now, from what I saw of the game, Virginia, you know, really was in a good position. I think that they were playing a decent game. They were up, but Louisville also demonstrated that they're a decent team and they have a lot of talent. So the fact that it went into overtime and Virginia pulling off a 3-point win, 30-27, the final there, says a lot about both teams. They're both good. both talented, and you'll see both of them in postseason action.
Yeah, shout out to Jeremy, who told me today I am banned from the show for being, even though I went on their podcast and told them I thought Louisville will win the game. So,
You put the see. He thinks you put the jinx on him.
I
That's
mean,
hilarious.
maybe, I mean, if that's what he thinks, so be it. But
Mhm.
God, this game made like this is a game where it's a classic case of turnovers making a difference. Virginia's offense did little to nothing all day long, but they got a fumble recovery touchdown early and then a pick six later. That's 14 points right there that
Yeah.
went in Virginia's favor in a game where I feel like Louisville was two scores better offensively than Virginia was. Louisville gained Virginia 283 to 237. But the credit to the Virginia defense, they get to Miller Moss 5 times in this game. We've talked about getting to the quarterback being a problem for Virginia over the last few years, and they've really showed out the past few weeks against some pretty quality competition. Um, Jamari Taylor get the game-winning touchdown. He had 97 total yards in this game. Chandler Morris didn't look great in this game, but he he had a really big play in overtime that set up Virginia inside the 5 yard line. Unfortunately, he hurt himself on the play, but they ended up doing the direct snap to Taylor, who ran it in on the next play. But he is okay. They said after the game he was fine and could have gone back in after one play. In the loss, Miller Moss 329 yards passing, but at the same time, I saw a lot of questionable decision making with him. And it's funny to me to start see Louisville people starting to say he should be benched, which I said this before, it probably says something when you got benched at USC. And it I think he's a solid quarterback, but he's not on the level what Tyler Shuck and
No.
um the first quarterback, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, a couple of years ago, but he he's just not them. Chris Bell, 12 catches, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. And Virginia is now a top 20 team, which is something I never thought would happen under this current regime. And getting that win over Florida State definitely helps. One of the things that was interesting to me when I saw this today, Bill Conley did the win probability for the week. Virginia's win probability in this game was 10.1%. Like, not, that honestly doesn't surprise me watching the game because I thought Louisville was the better team, but they also made the biggest mistakes. So, so be it. Sometimes luck turns your way, and it definitely did in Virginia's case here.
The reality is always the better team is the one that had more points on the board. It- you can say anything you want about that, but that's the reality. And I've coached enough games that I understand that. There are times that I've had teams that lost literally, and I just look back and it's on me, because I didn't get somebody to execute something properly. It happens. It's just any given day, literally, with games, you know, somebody's going to lose, somebody's going to win. Does that mean that's the best team on paper or the more talented team or whatever? Not necessarily. Sometimes it's, as you're pointing out, these turnovers, man, uh, they'll kill you. If somebody takes a turnover and turns it into points, you're done. You're done. You see that so much in basketball, especially. The more turnovers you make, and if that opposing team capitalizes on that, you're done. You just there's just no way to come back from that. So
They're
this
free
is one of those
possessions basically
situations.
for the other team.
Yeah, yeah. This was a, I don't know who would replace Moss, to be honest with you. I don't think there's anybody on the roster that could step up and do what he's doing.
I don't right off the top of my head, but I'm sure I don't know.
So, that's just something fans talk about all the time. Now,
Yeah.
before we get into this next game, I just want to point out something. I have said this before. Mario Cristobal needs to learn how to keep his foot on the gas. It's either him or it's his offensive coordinator, one or the other. You guys, you need a little pop, okay? Wake up. You almost gave this game away because Florida State did not want to lay down and completely roll over for you, and they started scoring points there, and it started getting a little hairy toward the end. I mean, I didn't see it as being, oh well, this could be it, but the fact that you were winning by so many points, and then all of a sudden Florida State started coming back was because you took the foot off the gas too damn soon. You don't do that ever. I don't care who you're playing because somebody's going to come back on you. And in this particular instance, you've got a team that has potential, has capability, and can score the points. So it ended up 28-22. And I tell you, I will watch that all the way to the end, just like most games. And it was like, oh boy, oh boy, here we go. Here we go. This is one of those instances where I just felt like, you know, what happened to the scoring machine that we know is Miami just disappeared. It just stopped. And it's like, and all of a sudden they just become conservative. Stop that crap. It's stupid. You're smarter than that. You want to win a game? You play and you put points up on the board. I mean, NC State 56, Campbell 10. That seems a little overkill for playing somebody like Campbell. But you know what? They won the game. They weren't scared about it. They ended up winning the game. That's what you have to do with your opponents. Now, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, if you aren't aware, uh, Miami was up 28-3 going into the fourth quarter, and we know 28-3 is one of the most dangerous scores you can have. See in the Super Bowl, speaking of Belichick. And then Florida State reeled off 19 points in the fourth quarter and was an onside kick away from getting the ball back with the potential to going down and winning the game in a very Mario Cristobal-esque type. This is not a Shannon Dawson. This is a Mario thing because he did the same thing at Oregon. I think they blew a game in a similar fashion against I forget who it might have been Stanford, I think it was, but Miami was the far superior team in this game, and there was no reason for it to be this close. Let's just be real. Put Carson Beck 4 touchdown passes in this game. Malachi Tony had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and again, Florida State turned it over 3 times and it led to 14 of Miami's points. So again, going back to turnovers, that kind
Okay.
of killed Florida State's chances in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Um, and let me just say, I think Florida State's got a great team. I really do. There's some pieces that are not clicking right there. Something going on that's not completely
Yeah.
in line. Don't know what that is. Don't really care to try to figure that out. I mean, because I haven't heard anything. Well, I have heard some stuff, but I just toss that in file 13 because I don't care. Um, but again, when you see two teams that have a lot of capability and they're playing, a good solid game, and again, uh, coaching staff at Miami, you really need to wake the hell up. Next game, Duke started out in a bad position here. Cal said, "Yeah, you're in our neighborhood now," and but Duke pulled out the win. I kind of thought they would. for a variety of reasons. I just think they're a better football team overall, and they proved that. 45-21, Duke over Cal.
Speaking of a team that's been a bit up and down, see Duke.
Yes.
Yeah, Cal led this game 14-7 at the end of the first quarter. Duke outscored them the rest of the way 38-7. Um, Credit to the Duke defense though, because they had Jared Kiawe just in a headlock, and he threw three interceptions. They turned it over four times. The Duke defense sacked them six times. Darian Minter threw two touchdown passes. Nate Shepard, the freshman running back, got two touchdown runs. It was just a pretty dominant effort by the Blue Devils on the road, and kudos to them. So I did not see this happening.
Yeah. Duke, I think, is a lot better football team. I think both of these teams are good teams. I think they have potential. Duke has, I think, more talent and more depth, and that's key. But keep an eye on Cal, man. I'm just saying, it's gonna be, maybe toward the end of this year, but next year, keep an eye on these guys. Um, all right, coming up next week, another very few games on the schedule, handful at best. So we start out with Stanford at SMU. That's a 12 noon game. It's going to be on the CW. Um, I hate to downplay the Cardinal, but I think SMU is head and shoulders.
Right with you there, Jim. I think SMU wins by multiple scores.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Now, you had made a comment about this next game, and I'm just I'm rethinking, to be honest with you. Pitt at Florida State. That's a nooner. That's going to be on ESPN. What do you think?
Making you rethink, huh?
Yeah.
I'm still taking the Knowles because I think they rebound here. I guess part of me is still skeptical of a repeat performance from Heinz at quarterback.
Okay. Fair enough. I I'm just man, there's something in my gut that's telling me that this is going to be a tight game. Um, it's very possible that Pitt pulls this off by a point or two or a field goal. Um, so I'm going to go with Pitt on this one. Just I don't know why. I just have this strange feeling. It's not that I don't like you, Knowles. I do. I have a great deal of respect for you. I actually like Mike as a coach. I don't like Narduzzi so much as a coach. So next game up, Virginia Tech at Georgia Tech. It's 3:30. That's on the ACC network.
Yeah, I think the Yellow Jackets should win fairly comfortably in this game,
Okay.
especially coming off the bye week, and Haynes Kings had a little bit more time to rest up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I like the Yellow Jackets in this one.
Yeah, move the blood around from those bruises. Um, right off the top of my head, this game, everybody would say, okay, it's sort of a gimme. But again, there's something about this game. NC State at Notre Dame, 3:30. It's on Peacock.
Part of me thinks State can actually hang a little bit with Notre Dame. And the reason being is Notre Dame's defense is not quite as good this year as it has been in years past. I think CJ Bailey could have a pretty good game. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I just, I'll take Notre Dame, but I think this is going to be a closer than you might think type of game.
Yeah, that's where I'm going too. I think the Irish win, but um, I think NC State has the potential to give them a what for. Wake Forest at Oregon State, 3:30. That is going to be on the CW. We've got two CW games this
A
coming
double
Saturday.
shot of CW.
Man, I'll tell you, it's almost as good as Fireball.
And
Wake Forest and Oregon State. That's interesting.
my how the mighty have fallen. Cal or Oregon State is 0-6
Hmm.
and just lost at Appalachian State on 27-23 on Saturday. Um, yeah, they're bad. Hey, Malik Murphy is their quarterback, but I'm gonna take Wake on to go on the road across country and win this game.
Wow, you're bold.
I am
Um,
bold, but hey, 4-2. Hey, they could win and get to 4-2. I think the Deeks have a outside shot at a bowl though.
yeah. Um, I'm going to be an ACC homer and go with Wake Forest. Not because I believe one way or the other. This is one of those. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Uh,
Clemson at Boston College, 7:30. That's the prime time game on the ACC network. Oh gosh. When you go, here's the thing. Anytime you go into Boston College, you stand to lose because there's an atmosphere there. There's just something about it. And I don't know, coming off that pounding by Pitt, um, but Clemson may be on a roll here. So I don't think I'm not like this on this game at all. But I think it could be entertaining for at least a half.
yeah, I tend to agree with you a little bit there, Jim. I definitely think Clemson is going to win this game. I think the thing you need to see as if you're Boston College is got to see some consistency on offense. That is something like Lonergan's had a great start to the season, but he's kind of struggled the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They have not run the ball consistently well all season. They need to get that figured out.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a problem because in this game because Clemson's D line is still really, really good, even though they're 2-3. But I definitely think the Tigers will win this one on the road.
Yeah. So do I. All right. Make sure that you check out, as I was mentioning earlier, Will is on TikTok, ACC Nation Net. And of course, we're also on multiple social media outlets. Um, check it out at accnation.net. Find content there. You'll find our ACC Nation power rankings for this week will be posted on Monday. And it should be interesting, to say the least. I don't expect a repeat performance of the Jim. Our thanks to Kelly Quinlan for joining us and talking about Georgia Tech football up front, and hope that everybody make sure that you follow us, like, subscribe, and we'll be back next week. Until then, cheers.
School.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.